The energy sector is booming and there aren't enough engineers to support future growth. So why are graduates finding it so hard to win a role in energy? In the next 10 minutes, I'll break down the 4-stage hiring process, what employees are looking for at each stage, and how to position yourself as the one person out of thousands to walk away with that 6-figure role. Just like I did straight out of uni. Before we get into the 4 stages, there's one thing that you must understand because it reframes the entire hiring process. Because most students are approaching this from the completely wrong angle and it's killing their chances. While you're thinking, how do I get this job? The employer is approaching the hiring process thinking, how do we find the best talent without spending 6 months and a small fortune doing so? The reality is, energy companies aren't running graduate programs out of the goodness of their hearts. They're investing in a pipeline of technical talent that's still going to be paying dividends in 5 years' time. But these programs are run by a recruiter, a hiring manager, a steering committee, and a HR team, all with competing priorities for their time. So they're tasked with solving the cost-quality continuum, solving for 2 objectives that pull them in opposite directions. At one end is the objective of bringing the best possible talent into the organization, whilst at the other is doing it as efficiently as possible. That tension is exactly why the hiring process looks the way it does. Every rudimentary stage is just another deliberate tool that the company uses to solve that tension. But once you understand that, the process stops feeling random and it starts feeling like something you can actually prepare for. So it's not just the students that have the best resumes or the best interview skills that really land the roles. It's the people who understand how the process works that have the best chances of success. So with that being said, the first stage of the hiring process is the application. A standard application contains 3 things: a resume, a cover letter, and less commonly, a short answer section. It's your first formal impression in the hiring process, and in most cases, you're only shot before someone decides whether you're worth more than 10 minutes of their time. To win this time, a recruiter, often without a deep technical background, is scanning for 3 things. 1 is baseline qualifications. If your degree doesn't match the role profile, you're filtered out before a second glance. 2 is organizational fit, asking the question, does this applicant at surface level fit in with our company culture? And 3 is relevant experience. Now, this can be things like internships, university projects, or any other indicators of whether the way you operate outside of the controlled classroom environment aligns with the company's goals. To be honest, at this stage, they're not looking for a reason to say yes, they're looking for a reason to say no. So how do you progress past this stage? Step 1 is to draft your application. Get everything down, every role, every project, every skill, every experience. Aim to capture your professional path to this moment in time. Step 2 is to reposition it. From your previous knowledge of the company, networking conversations, and the role profile, rewrite your resume and cover letter to portray value in the eyes of the company. The critical point to remember here is that generic applications get generic outcomes. And step number 3, iterate. Your resume, cover letter, and short answers need to not only synthesize with themselves, but synthesize with the role you're applying for. To achieve this, you can ask a friend or even your favorite neighborhood large language model to review it for you, or choose to do it yourself. When you're doing this, act as if you're the recruiter. If it doesn't land within 10 seconds, rewrite it until it does. Now, if you get that revered email telling you that you've made it past the application stage, congratulations, that is a huge win. But unfortunately, the next stage is much harder to prepare for. Stage number 2 is what I call the online assessments. In my experience in 10+ engineering hiring processes, these online assessments typically fall into 2 categories. Category number 1 is the cognitive test. These IQ style tests are designed to assess your lateral thinking and problem solving ability through verbal, numeric, and inductive reasoning. For engineers, the most common one is the sequential pattern match games, where your pattern recognition and detailed oriented focus is put to the test. Category number 2 are the emotional intelligence tests. These EQ style tests emulate your ability to operate within a corporate workplace. The most common test here is the facial emotions quiz, where you match a facial expression to an emotional label. Some companies run these automatically for each applicant, some other companies assign these at random based upon application outcomes. But what is critical for you to pass this is understanding what the employer is actually looking to get out of it. And it comes down to them assessing 2 things. Number 1 one, it's a sense check on your application. Do you actually perform at the level your application implies? And two, it's probing how you think. Can you problem solve under pressure? And in the EQ assessments, what are your natural tendencies when emotions become an outcome of rational decisions? As an engineer, you should never treat these assessments like games, because the end result isn't just a score, it's your personal profile. So what should you do to guarantee success? Most engineers, me included, always try to reverse engineer the right answer. From both being in these assessments and seeing the other end, my advice is one word: don't. Because if your profile contradicts how you show up in the remaining two stages of the hiring process, it raises flags about your character that are genuinely hard to recover from. So my advice, for the EQ components, focus on being yourself and responding naturally as if you were talking to a close family member or friend. For the cognitive IQ style tests, these are a bit more coachable. Personally, my approach was to practice these beforehand where possible, taking them when you're in the sharpest and there are zero distractions, because otherwise they can be quite difficult to score well in. Now, by this point, you've passed the filters designed to screen you out. But in the next stage, the pressure increases and you can't hide behind your resume or test scores anymore. Stage number 3 of the hiring process is the digital interview. Now, this stage has the largest variation across companies because it's usually the first stage in which significant company time and money is used to assess you in a workplace-like environment. The first common format you may encounter is the pre-recorded video interview. I encountered this in interviews with SA Power Networks and Downer, and it involves logging into a portal and answering around 5 questions spanning organizational, behavioral, and technical concepts. The catch is that after being given a question, you've got only 10 seconds to prepare and then 60 seconds to answer in a single take. The second common format is a virtual assessment center. I experienced this for the first time with Deloitte, and it involved a workshop-based session where we solved a multi-stage problem in teams. At the end, we presented our approach, rationale, and findings back to the group. While these formats seem completely different, the underlying purpose is the same. In this stage, the employer is trying to assess 2 things. Number 1 is how you think on your feet, and 2 is how you present without a safety net being there. In the pre-recorded format, there is no feedback loop, and so for the first time in the hiring process, they're actually getting a sense of you outside of your written word. But that's intentional. As coined by the Navy SEALs, when under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you default to your level of training, which is ultimately the goal of the employers at this stage, assessing your level of comfort within the unknown. So how can you prepare for a test that you don't know the topic of? In my experience, preparation comes down to doing 3 things. Number 1 is simply company research. You have to be in tune with the company's projects, priorities, and language. Because if this isn't something that you've considered, it's glaringly obvious within your answers. Number 2 is building a bank of 10 to 15 STAR responses. For those who haven't come across STAR before, it's a framework used to break an experience into a story that uses a situation, task, action, and result to explain how you operate. So instead of making an empty claim that you're good at problem solving, you can say, when I was working at SA Power Networks, I was tasked with the problem of streamlining the division's reporting on major project delivery using Excel swing tables. But I hadn't used those before. Over the next week, I learned them from scratch and presented a proof of concept to the leadership team that exceeded their expectations so much that they decided to fund a fully automated version. Star stories are a unique way to ensure that your preparation sets you up for success in an interview no matter what questions you get asked. Practice each story out loud, record it, and watch it back later. To be honest, most people skip this step because it takes a lot of time and it's very painful to listen to yourself on camera, which is exactly why those people who do it actually stand out and the rest that choose not to get filtered out. And point number 3 is to choose your assessment time strategically. As these assessments are online, you commonly get a week or 2 to take it. Use this advantage to take the assessment when you're at your best. For me, it's in the mornings, but for you, it might be late at night when you're less distracted. If you get past the digital interview, congratulations, you got past your first live interaction. But the next stage is the ultimate test, and it's what's standing between you and your dream 6-figure role. The 4th and final stage is the in-person interview. These interviews interviews typically consist of 2 to 4 people, commonly a hiring manager, a technical lead, and a senior stakeholder. They run around 45 to 60 minutes and cover 4 types of questions: general, behavioral, technical, and what I call excellence questions, where they probe you as to why you're the excellent person that they should hire. This stage is ultimately where the offer is won or lost. In my experience, around 7 out of 10 people who interview for a role get the offer, and those 3 out of 10 don't. So how do you ensure that you're a part of the lucky 7? Employers use the in-person interview to assess 3 things: knowledge, communication, and composure. Knowledge translates to whether you can speak credibly about your discipline, experience, and the value you can provide. This can show up as a behavioral question like, tell us about a time you were challenged on a design decision and how you resolved it, or a straight technical question like, a customer's experience flickering lights at the end of a long distribution line. What's the likely cause and how would you fix it? Communication is all about proving that you can structure your thinking and deliver it clearly under pressure. And lucky last, being composure, is all about assessing your ability to hold yourself together when a question ultimately rattles you. Because no matter how well you prepare, I can guarantee it will happen. A question that got me in an interview with Oricon was simply a question phrased as, what is an engineer? And after hours of technical prep, I stumbled and ultimately couldn't string it together before they moved on. All in all, seems pretty straightforward, right? And honestly, it is. But only once you understand the strategy that makes it so. After years and years in the hiring process, the only strategy that ensures interview success is 2 words: deliberate preparation. And it's as simple as 3 steps. Step number 1 is to identify 5 non-negotiable stories that demonstrate your skills and experience at the highest level. Stories you have to tell regardless of the questions asked. Write each one 3 different ways using the STAR format so that you can adapt them to answer whatever questions that surface. Step number 2 is to prepare deliberately for all 4 question types: general, behavioral, technical, and excellence. Brainstorm using online resources and your past research. Don't just leave it to chance based upon what your mate said he got asked in his interview when he graduated 3 years ago. And step number 3 is the unavoidable mock interview. It doesn't have to be complex. You can simply film yourself with a random question generator or get a friend to grill you. There is no substitute for iterative practice until it comes naturally and bores you. Simplify it in your mind. The goal isn't to memorize questions, it's to get comfortable enough that when you get rattled, your mind defaults to the most relevant story and you can tell it on autopilot. If you've made it this far, you now understand the 3 things that most candidates never even consider. But there's one thing I haven't covered yet, and honestly, it's probably the hardest part. Because knowing the end-to-end hiring process is one thing, but understanding how to position yourself for success before you even send your first application is a whole different skill set. I simplify that complexity using my 6-step energy career framework, which takes you through the exact methods that I used to land my 6-figure grad role as a student with no previous industry experience. I broke the whole thing down in a separate video right here. Click on the screen to check it out.